Jeremy Parker, welcome to Build Sell Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
So tell me about swag.com. How did this business start?
Good question. So out of college, my first job out of college was running a promotional product division under MV Sports, a large player in the promotional product space. And I remember when I was like 21, 22, I was traveling to all these different trade shows and I was falling in love with the industry, and they're a very big supplier in the industry, MV Sport. But I realized all the buyers that we were selling to, which was a much older buyer. And it was curious to me. Everyone wanted to do deals via catalogs and presentation decks and phone calls and back and forth emails. It was very fragmented. But that's who the buyer was. That's what the buyer cared about. And then,
well, I'll tell you what, Jeremy, it's funny. In 93, I graduated university, and my first job was in what they called at the time trinkets and trash, putting logos on golf balls, right? And I mean, I go back to exactly that. When I did it, it was like a catalog, and you'd like go through the golf shirts and say, would you like your logo on the polo shirt or the V-neck, and there'd be, the golf ball, and it was a very fragmented, very old school, a bunch of catalog type business. So I know exactly the industry that you walked into. So keep going.
So I was walking in and I realized it was just very broken. And to me, I was a 22-year-old. I'm like, this needs to be done a lot better. But the buyer was this more old school buyer. And I figured that maybe it's just built for the current buyer. But then you fast forward 10 years and the buyer changed. I started to see the buyer shifting to a much younger buyer. And in between those 10 years, I did a lot of other startups. I had a company that got acquired by a publicly traded company. I did a lot of different things. I had some startups that failed. But I always kept my finger on the pulse of the promotional product space because I was so into it. I loved it. I thought it was very powerful. And I thought it was an amazing marketing channel if done right. But the buyer was shifting. And I realized the buyer was shifting. And he was much younger. And when I realized the buyer was now a millennial, a Gen Z, they didn't want to talk on the phones. They didn't want to sift through thousands of products in the catalog. They wanted to find what they're looking for, upload their design, mock it up, check out in seconds. I figured this is the right time to build it. So 2016, bought the swag.com domain name, and we just went all in. And frankly, the first year of the business, we didn't build anything. We just tried to learn as much as possible. Who are the right customers? What were they buying for? What was the use case? We knew we wanted to sell to the business buyers, but even within the business, there's so many different buyers. There's the office manager that's buying for onboarding new hires. There's the HR team, they're buying for different reasons. The marketing team buying to bet the best customers, the sales team to close sales. There's all these different departments within an organization that are buying, and we want to figure out who are the right buyers. So after literally hundreds of conversations with our core customer, we figured out exactly who to go after, and we started to build them the right experience. So first year, very manual sales. Second year, we launched the first version of the e-commerce site. And then we just had that mentality of, 80% of what we build is going to be coming directly from customers asking for it. And then 20% of the things we build, we're just going to be throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks.
I love it. And again, I go back 30 years ago when I got into this business, it was very old school, but your vision as the buyer changed to this millennial, they didn't want to see some guy in a suit with a catalog. They wanted to go online, and they also didn't want to be overwhelmed with thousands and thousands of products. They wanted curated products that were cool, hip, and things that people would keep as opposed to just throw in the junk drawer. And I love this business model, and I'm dying to ask, what did you pay for swag.com? That is one hell of a URL.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So early on, they were asking a lot of money. They're asking about $1.2 million. And frankly, I didn't have that money, and it's starting a new business, a lot to invest in just the domain name, even though to us, the domain name was very, very valuable. And I'll get to that in a second. But what we did is we worked out a deal with the owner where we exclusively licensed the domain for a period of time with the option to buy it. So from day one, we were able to use the domain without actually putting out front cash. And then ultimately, when we had the cash, we were able to purchase it for them. So the deal made a lot of sense. We could get the business off the ground with very, very little money, prove the concept. And obviously, if it was making enough sales that we could justify buying it, it was clearly, the right move. Now, the reason why we went and we wanted a domain name from very early on is that swag purchasing is not impulse purchasing. It's not like you're scrolling Facebook and you see a pair of shoes and you want to buy that pair of shoes. You're buying on behalf of your company, and usually the order sizes are from like $4,000, $5,000 and up. They're big in bulk orders. So there's a specific cadence and use case for it. And it's typically around, an upcoming event or holiday season or onboarding new hires. If you discover it in January and you're scrolling Facebook and you see an ad for swag, you're probably not going to need to buy swag right then and there. You might need to buy it in October, but we have to stay on top of mind for the next 8-9 months before they actually need it. So I wanted the name swag.com because it converts offline conversations to online purchasing. If you're talking to your boss in October and they're talking about, I need to buy swag, it will trigger, swag.com, and typing it directly into the browser. So it was super important for us to own that brand name.
I want to get back to the original founding story in a moment, but I have to ask you, how has retargeting played a role in your advertising, given the cadence of people taking, in many cases, 8-9 months to make a purchase? I'm assuming retargeting has been a major part of your online investment.
It's been a huge investment, but I'll tell you something which is very specific to swag.com and because of our brand name. This is why I think it's so valuable. Over 50% of our conversions, people coming to our site and actually close and selling, type directly into the browser swag.com. So theoretically, we do a retargeting ad on Facebook or Google or wherever. They don't actually need to click on the retargeting ad to go to our site. They just type it directly into the browser because the name is so memorable and short. And usually it's the person discovering the ad who's not even the purchasing person. So they hear us, they talk to their coworkers, they bring up swag, and then somebody else is typing into the browser swag.com.
So cool. So I can't recall the first time I heard the term swag. I was probably at some industry conference. Mm-hmm. They probably gave me a bag. Inside was a branded coffee mug, and they referred to it as swag. And was this, when did the word swag become sort of used in the public domain in a kind of colloquial way? When did that start?
Yeah. I think to me, it started within the last 10 years. We started the business 7 years ago. So I've heard of it and I've been following, as I mentioned before. I was in the industry a long time ago. They weren't really calling it swag back then. Everything was very promotional products. That was
100%. Yeah.
But about 10 years ago or so, I started to hear the word swag more and more. And to me, the word was so powerful because it didn't feel throwaway and it didn't feel schlocky, and it felt kind of cool. It was different than the word promotional products. That's like such an old term, and which actually was
and you get a swag bag, and people would be excited about the swag bag, right? Like, what's in the swag bag? Like they had a sense of excitement about it.
Exactly right. And when I heard that term starting, I'm like, something has happened in the industry where maybe the buyer's changing, the buyer's getting younger, the buyer's calling it something else, and that was kind of the first aha moment of. The industry is still broken, old, and fragmented. The buyer is very different now. So how do we build the right experience for today's buyer? And by doing that, let's own the keyword. If someone's Googling, create custom swag, we want to be the first thing that comes up. If they're typing in the new swag ideas, we want to be the first that comes up. Obviously, owning the domain helps with the SEO, but just frankly, people having conversations about swag makes them remember the domain name.
Okay, so go back to the deal to acquire swag. So there was a revenue share, a licensing deal. So it was a top line revenue. So like a percentage of everything that you sold through swag.
No, it's more equity. So we gave the owner a piece of equity with the option, and we got the option to buy it. So we got the license, we used the name. If the company succeeded, they got the money that we were going to pay them, and they got some equity in the business. And if the company didn't succeed, they would get the domain name back. So for them, it was like a no risk opportunity.
Okay, so they got some equity in your business. You mind sharing how much?
No, I can't disclose that, but very, very, very small, relatively nominal. But it obviously paid out for them.
Yeah, and so they got a piece of equity in the business. And how did the economics of the second piece work? From some sort of maybe
so we negotiated a price that we're willing to pay it for. So they got a piece of equity. For that, we got the domain name to use for the 2-year option. And at any moment throughout those 2 years, we're able to purchase it for that agreed upon purchase price, which was $200,000 that we were ultimately able to buy it for. If we couldn't, afford the $200,000, that means the company wasn't doing well, and they would just get their domain name back. We wouldn't own it. So it was very risk-free to them. They were getting a price. Maybe it wasn't as high a price that they wanted, but the upside, they got some equity in like 2 young kids who wanted to start a business that they felt like was a good idea. And for us, it was great because we got the domain name from the first day, and we're able to build it out and prove out concept. And then ultimately it made sense to come up with the $200,000 because we knew that there was a real brand there.
Who came up with that structure?
Me and my co-founder, I think it was just brainchild. Like, we need this domain. It's very valuable. We can't afford it. So we had to figure something else out to make it work.
Because that's a pretty sophisticated model, and it feels like a very sophisticated, that sounds like a Mr. Wonderful kind of deal on Shark Tank. It sounds like a fairly sophisticated person who would have come up with that. Because you were a film major at Boston University,
Yep.
right? What did Josh do?
Josh was accounting and finance at Deloitte. I think it was creative idea, and I think through our story, there's a lot of creativity that plays. It was based on necessity. I think most founders, you hit a wall and you need to come up with an idea to get through the wall. So that was just the way we went about it.
How did you guys finance the growth of this business?
We raised a little bit of money, tranches here and there as we go on, but mostly it was, from sales. I mean, the main thing is we made sales and we profit on those sales, and we reinvested it back in technology. And so over the course of the business, we raised less than $4 million all in, and by the end of the business, before we got acquired, we were doing 30 million sales. So as you can imagine, raising less than 4 million, doing 30 million of sales, it's a lot of it comes from reinvesting what you're making.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious though about cash flow, because I've had some exposure to other businesses in this kind of broadly speaking promotional products industry, to use the old fashioned term. And in some cases, the cash flow is great. In other cases, it's terrible. So one business I know, it's kind of like the catalog play where the customer picks something in the catalog, the customer pays upfront or a big deposit, and then the broker effectively buys the product.
Yep.
And it's a cash flow positive deal. The other one, though, is a negative cash flow model where I'm aware of somebody who does the metal buckets you get in a bar that has like Budweiser on the outside. Budweiser will come to them and say, like, I need 1 million metal buckets for like a Super Bowl promotion we're gonna. And that individual needs to purchase the metal buckets. In this case, he buys them from China. He needs to finance that shipment. He needs to hand over a check to the boat when it clears customs in LA.
We're more in the first bucket. We're more in the first, no pun intended. The first bucket.
Yeah, because he has huge lines of credit for these deals, and it's brutal.
We have great economics for our business. We collect the money up front from customers, and then we owe the suppliers. And usually we have like net 30, net 60, net 90 days with our suppliers. So, we're very much in the clear from the time the customer checks out.
How do you ensure
we collect, let's say, $10, and then we owe $5 to the supplier in that case. But we're collecting all up front. There are some customers, our bigger customers, who frankly are on net terms. But because we have net terms with our suppliers, we're always still getting paid, even with giving net terms to our customers before we ever owe anything to the suppliers.
How do you ensure the supplier doesn't go direct? So let's say you've got a cool product, a cool like 500 ml water bottle that everybody wants. All the big companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, they all want to give it to their employees. How do you ensure that bottle manufacturer doesn't start going knocking on Google's door and saying, hey, why don't you just buy direct from us?
Yeah, it's always been a quote unquote fear of distributors. I'm a distributor in the industry that would happen, but it doesn't happen. And the reason is the suppliers that we use for promotional products, their business, their lifeline is the distributor network. If it ever got out there that they're going direct, they're going to lose their entire audience. So it's never happened. It won't happen. And frankly, these suppliers are not front facing. They're not like great user experiences. It's the most old school, placing an order in their system. That's not their, I guess, skill set, if you will.
Yeah. I know, I was doing a little bit of research before our call, and I know the trajectory of your sales, unbelievable. 2016, 350 grand, 2017, 1.1, 3.1, 7, 15 and a half, 30, 40. It's just like a hockey stick. Tell me the WeWork story, because WeWork bought some t-shirts from you guys. Walk us through that order and how that impacted your business.
Yeah, it was very early on. Honestly, I think it was like the second week of our business, and we knew we needed the WeWork order. And the reason, it was a strategy, just like everything else we try to do, is WeWork, they had this thing called the summer camp, WeWork summer camp. There's 5,000 people go to the summer camp, and there's tons of companies, thousands of companies who go, and they hang out for like 3 days, and they're learning and they're having fun. And our feeling was, what if we got the WeWork summer camp t-shirt order? All of our t-shirts have a swag.com logo imprint on the inner label, right? So you can imagine if 5,000 t-shirts are giving out to 5,000 founders, and everything says swag.com on the inner label, it's our customers are doing the marketing for us. Like when you buy a pair of jeans, it's cooler the more you wear it, right? You want to wear it, gets cooler. With swag, the intent is to be given out. You buy 1,000 t-shirts, you get out this 1,000 t-shirts. You buy 100 t-shirts, you get out 100 t-shirts. So we needed to get certain key brand names who we knew that if they gave it out, it would say, not only does swag.com do WeWork stuff, which was a super hot tech company at the time, but also look at the quality. You feel the quality. You see the print. You see the logo. You see everything. So it's like it showcases the quality and also gives that instant social proof that clearly these big companies are using us. If they could do WeWork stuff, clearly they could do our startup stuff. And so when I went to WeWork with Josh and we pitched it that we could do it, they asked us. It was a question. They asked us, who else do you work with? Because that's a big question people typically ask when you're starting out. And we said Facebook, and we literally got a Facebook order the week before because we went to the office and we sold t-shirts. And frankly, we didn't make money on the t-shirts. We made like 5% margin. It wasn't about making money in the early days. We consider ourselves logo hunters. It was about building a brand, building credibility. When people go to swag.com, the site could say coming soon, but if there's a row of logos that say WeWork, Facebook, Bravo TV, all these people are using us, clearly they're the right platform to use. Ultimately, we didn't have to do that, knocking on doors. People will come to us, but in the early days, you have to do everything you can to get those brand names. And then we did the WeWork. We had my family, my grandma, my aunts and uncles rolling the t-shirts. We rented a U-Haul. We drove it down. You do everything in the early days. You have to. And it was very important for us not only to get WeWork, but to get the customers that WeWork, we connect us to. And from that one event, we got about 30 more customers who were at the event, who saw the t-shirts and who started buying from us.
And so to be clear, on my t-shirt, if I went to the WeWork summer camp event, on my t-shirt, if I looked inside the label, it would say, created by Swag.
Yeah, it says in the back right here, it will say like swag.com with our tagline, we made this, and your t-shirt size and like material. And the reason why we made this in all of our t-shirts is because it's obviously to say swag.com made this, right? It's very clear. But more, it's that when you work for WeWork and you put your WeWork t-shirt on and it says, we made this, you should feel pride in what you're wearing. You work for Facebook. You put a Facebook t-shirt on. You're part of Facebook. You built Facebook. We made this. So it has this like double meaning of why we want to represent that.
Yeah. Did you ever get pushback from brands saying, hey, can you just kind of leave that off the logo?
Can I tell you something hilarious? So now we offer a lot of products that are not just swag.com branded. In the first 2 years, it was only swag.com that we forced people on. Our top 3 sellers on our site today, and we have every brand you can imagine, tons of brands, is swag.com t-shirt, swag.com hoodie, swag.com hat, swag.com water bottle. It's our brand stuff. So our brand actually has a really big play. People love it. People want it. People are coming to us for our brand, for our aesthetic, for our curation, as you mentioned before. And people actually really, really like our brand stuff more than anything else on our site.
It's a great name. And I love the URL and the name, and it's memorable. How did you the trajectory again for my listeners, 2016, 350K, 17, 1.1, 18, 3.1, 19, 7. At what point did you and Josh start to think about valuation and what this company might be worth one day?
Well, we always did. Not always. In the first year, it wasn't about valuation. It was about learning if we had anything here, learning the business, talking to customers, manually doing sales the old school way. I was doing sales with Josh the first year, knocking on doors, doing catalogs, doing presentations just to learn the right way to do it so we could ultimately build the right solution for people to do self-service. In 2017, we got into this tech incubator program, which was a big changing trajectory for us, called TechStars. I don't know if you're familiar, but there's TechStars in Chicago.
A few alumni.
And plus, we were so siloed, if you will. We were working out of a WeWork in New York City. We were just in our own brains, like talking about the ideas, talking to some customers, but we didn't really have VCs or investors or anyone pushing back and trying to poke holes. And that's frankly important. We went to Chicago. We got part of this tech incubator in Chicago, Techstars. And the biggest thing happened for our business, frankly, at this thing. It was the learnings, but it was mostly this one meeting that happened when we were in Chicago. When we were in Chicago, they set us up with a meeting with a company called 𝙬𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙀. And 𝙬𝙊𝙐𝙐𝙊𝙀 is a big tech startup in Chicago. And part of this incubator, Techstars, they connect you with local founders. And we went to the 𝙬𝙊𝙐𝙊𝙀 office, and I remember I was on the second floor, and we went to the office, and there was like 5 people on the floor unboxing, reboxing, packaging up swag, writing handwritten note cards, and doing the shipments themselves. And at that point, I realized these guys are spending weeks consolidating swag from different places, reboxing it, repackaging it, rewriting it. What if we could help them from our platform? They buy swag, they buy a mug, they buy a notebook. It doesn't matter what supplier is coming from. We consolidate it in our 3PL, our warehousing. We allow them to kit boxes, and we allow them to individually distribute to multiple different addresses. So we started building out our swag distribution platform towards the end of 17, early 18. We spent all of 18 and 19, frankly, building out this robust infrastructure for allowing people to not only buy 1,000 t-shirts and send them to their office, but to buy 1,000 t-shirts and mugs and notebooks and consolidate it, warehouse it, do individual distribution. We launched the first version of the site in January of 2020. And obviously, we all know that COVID hit in 3 months later. We built it as a mechanism for marketing teams, frankly, to send out to their best customers and leads and give them gifts. We didn't design it, frankly, for a pandemic to happen, but our service became a necessity. And so what we did is all the messaging and branding was about marketing teams and automation and marketing automation and do this and that. And we repivoted everything. We changed all of the discussion to engage with your remote employees, keep the company culture thriving even when no one's in the office, like be able to engage and send stuff to your best customers. If you're not going to see them at a trade show, how do you engage with them? And we completely changed the messaging and the branding and how we highlighted it. We pushed it forward. So we built this, frankly, the most necessary swag solution 2 years before COVID. And now it's just been growing, and people really need the solution more than ever.
Awesome. Go back to the question, though, about valuations. So Techstars is obviously an incubator where they take a little bit of equity in return for advice and so forth.
Yes.
So at that point, you're early, you're $1 million in sales or something like that.
Yeah.
Had they started to give you some visibility into how you might be valued?
Yeah. When you're really early, there's nothing to really go off. You're not doing EBITDA numbers. You're too early for that. You're not doing, necessarily revenue numbers. You could, but it's so early because the bigger the numbers you get, the revenue multiples will probably go lower and lower, right? In the early days, when you're doing $1 million in revenue, you could justify getting a little bit higher valuation because you're so early and you have to factor in growth. So after Techstars, we were doing about $1 million for that year, 2017. We got a $7 million valuation at that point when we did a small round because it was like the industry norm is between 1x and 4x revenue. But because we were growing so fast and because we were so early in the process, we were able to justify a little bit higher revenue multiple.
When you say industry norm,
yeah,
I'm curious about that because I've seen deals in the promotional products business that are very low valuations.
Yeah.
I'm really talking about no brand, no technology, no distribution. They've got a catalog and a guy in the second bedroom of his house schlepping, trinkets of trash, and he's getting 2 and 3 times EBITDA because they've got no technology, they've got no brand, they're just a basic, middleman, if you will, of promotional products. A guy with a catalog in the second bedroom of his house, and he's getting, I've seen deals that are sort of, again, 2-3 times EBITDA. You're talking about multiples much higher than that, 1 to 4 times revenue. Mm-hmm. So walk me through that. How are you getting such higher valuations?
Yeah, they really look at us as a tech company. Frankly, all these other promo distributors that are doing things old school, they're all about relationships. So if they get acquired and they leave, they're most likely to lose all of their customers. We don't have that same thing. Customers are coming to us. They're self-serving. Up until 2 years ago, we had 0 salespeople at all. And we just hired our first outbound salesperson about 6 months ago. So you're doing $30 million of revenue without an outbound salesperson. It's 100% self-service. And then once they leave, let's say Jennifer at Facebook leaves the company, You have Peter at Facebook who takes over, especially if people are buying and holding an inventory, then there's nowhere for them to go, right? Jennifer at Facebook buys $20,000 of swag. If she leaves to another company, Peter comes over, they have $20,000 sitting in inventory, they have to make distribution. So it's a very much stickier offering. So for us, it was never really thought about the traditional promo multiples. And frankly, that was many conversations early on that I had to have where people were maybe trying to value us like a promo distributor, but we're not. So we had to really make it very, very clear that we're just completely different. And to the right buyer, our tech solution will play. They're not buying this for necessarily revenue. They're not buying this for the context. They're buying this for the infrastructure, the automation, the self-serve nature, and all that stuff.
A lot of people listening to this really want to lean in on this point because I think they often get, quickly bucketed into, oh, you're a crappy service business. We have a model. We have a metric that we buy companies like yours for, or, you're just a basic, whatever dealership model or broker model, whatever, industry they don't want to be lumped into. Walk me through how you made the case to an acquirer or an investor who was trying to put you in the wrong bucket. They were trying to put you in the promotional products bucket. Like, how did you convince them? And I know you just mentioned superficially a couple things you did, but I'd love to go deeper there and say specifically, did you stop them and say, actually, no, we're not a promotional products company. Let me tell you the 3 reasons we're not. Or did you dance with them a little bit? Like, walk me through the dialogue.
There was a dance.
You overcame that objection.
Yeah, there definitely was a dance. But I think the very clear data point was the whole industry is run on sales agents. It's all run on catalogs and going outbound. And at the time when we're doing these fundraising, we had 0 salespeople. We had 0 customer serve, frankly. It was all self-serve. So you can't think of us in the same bucket if in one customer base, they're doing it themselves, and another customer base, it's all manual, it's all fragmented, it's all presentations, all this. So it was very clear. I said, really, frankly, the only similarity that we have with the promo distributors is that the product is we're selling the same product. But the experience is completely different. Why is the reason why they're coming to swag.com versus coming to anyone else? They're coming because the buyer wants to do it themselves. They want the self-service. They want that whole aspect. So we're building tons of technology. And frankly, every dollar that we made went back into tech. When we looked at our P&L and all the different things, tech was our biggest, that was the biggest investment we kept making. And that was our belief. Our belief is if we're at the forefront of technology, and we're offering a solution that no one else can get, and our customers are frankly asking for and demanding it, then really the only similarity that we're doing with these other distributors is the product, ultimately product that we're selling. But why does one, toothbrush company have different valuation than a different toothbrush company? Or why does one software have a different valuation than something else? It's like you have Lemonade, you have different companies that do very similar things, but they modernize it and they bring it to technology. It has to be viewed as something completely different. So that's what's our thing. But I think some investors didn't get it, and those were just investors we didn't go for. And some investors got it, and those were the investors that leaned in and saw the vision. So I think for us, it was about figuring out who's the right partner. And you don't have to have every partner. Not everyone has to see the vision.
Take me through the valuation journey, because in the very early days, Techstars, you're valued at 7 times revenue.
No, it came afterwards. So I think Techstars, I forgot exactly the numbers, but I think Techstars, everybody starts at 3 million valuation. That's like the standard. 3 million is when you get into Techstars, you get 3 million. And then the whole goal of Techstars is frankly to help you raise money. Now for us, we didn't really need Techstars for that purpose. We use Techstars for different things, for getting us out of a silo and talking to more people and getting feedback and getting pushback and meeting other founders that frankly led to the swag distribution vision. The funding was a secondary thing for us because frankly, we were making money through sales that we were investing. It was more to shore up or maybe grow a little faster. So after Techstars, the 3-month program, we raised, I forgot the exact number, 500,000, in that range, 400 to 500,000. And the number that we felt comfortable with was the 7 million. So after 3 months, we got 3 months in, we came in Techstars, we got 3 million. 3 months later, we got a 7 million valuation. It was that we felt like that was the right amount. Ultimately, we figured that we should be on the higher end of the revenue multiple and get value way different than the EBITDA multiples and the low EBITDA promo distributors, because we didn't even consider ourselves a promo distributor. So much so that I didn't go to any of the promo distributor trade shows, really. I wasn't involved in the industry for the first 5 years because I frankly wanted to keep myself out of it. I wanted to look at, if I'm Facebook and I want to buy swag, how is the best way for me to buy swag? Not how anyone else does it, not to get confused by how everyone else is doing things. I wanted to do it based on what I thought the customer would actually want. And we were just being a very different path. We were like straight technology. That was our focus. So 7 times. And then frankly, for us, it was like, you try to get the best valuation that makes sense. But if somebody is pushing back and you're getting a lot of inputs and data points and maybe a lot of people are disagreeing, then maybe you have to, rethink it. Like, we're not opposed to saying we're not always 100% right. Like later on phases when we did rounds, we thought we were worth X and somebody said you're worth a little bit less than X. And we had enough people saying the same thing that were disconnected that we felt like, maybe we are maybe overvaluing us or undervaluing ourselves in both ways. It could go both ways.
And what was both you and Josh are young guys. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'll vouch for Jeremy and tell you he's a young guy. So I'm curious to know why. Was there some triggering event that made you want to sell so early in your chronology, so to speak?
It's a very good question, and we frankly weren't looking to sell at all. In end of 2020, we were connected. Right before pandemic, we were connected with the Custom Ink team, and then we lost touch over the pandemic because obviously people had different priorities. And you had to focus on the growth, and it was more of just like an introduction. And we reconnected towards the end of 2020 and just to be in touch. And for us at that point, it was just good to learn about what the bigger players are doing in the space and maybe thinking about an ultimate exit, but it was never something like imminent that we were thinking about. But then we started.
Custom Ink, for those who don't know, is a promotional products company. They do customized shirts and stuff.
Yep.
Where you
they're one of the largest in the space. They're doing $550, $600+ million a year in sales, and they've been around for 20 years or so. And they're a private company still. And we met with Mark, the CEO of Custom Ink. We met a lot of the team members, and we just realized we had a very similar vision, a long-term vision for the business. And frankly, they had much bigger buying power. They can make our margins significantly stronger. They've worked through kinks that we, are constantly. Every startup goes through challenges. So like you're going through different challenges and you're learning different things. And usually if you're in the startup mode, you just break through and you hit through the wall. But they've spent 20 years in the space. They know all the things to avoid. And they were such a good team. I was thinking, well, what can we build together? It was more about that. It was less about we're just selling and being done. Like, I'm still CEO of swag.com. It's over a year and a half later at this point. It's what we could build together. So a big part of our deal when we got acquired was equity in Custom Ink. And Custom Ink is still a private company. So the goal is ultimately, what can we build together? How can we make this business? How can we do what Custom Ink is doing and being the leader in the consumer space and charities, organizations, and take what swag.com, the fastest growing company for B2B purchasing, and combine our resources, our knowledge, and really attack this market and really own the whole market and being the first and forefront of technology. Because Custom Ink is really looked at as like the technology player in our space, and we're looked at the technology player in our space. And they're very similar in the back ends, the supply chain, the operations, the warehousing is very similar. The front-facing experience, the brand, the marketing strategy, who we're going after is very, very different. So we have a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, but what can we do together? So it just made sense. After getting to know them for a year, we ultimately got acquired in November of 2021. So just imagine we talked to them early January, February of 2020. Almost 2 full years later, we actually pulled the trigger and said, this actually is right, and let's get acquired by you guys, and let's bring us together. So it wasn't like just like it sounds great. Here's money, good, I'm going to sell. It was more thought out, and it was more of a longer term vision.
Yeah. Makes good sense. I'd love to explore that a little further. So you're contacted by Mark early prior to the pandemic. You guys connect, then the pandemic happens, everything changes, obviously. And so did Mark reconnect with you in late 2020, or did you reach out to him?
It wasn't Mark. It was somebody on Mark's strategy team who reached out to us first. We connected with early 2020, and then 8 months later or so, the same team, the same strategy team reached out to us, how things are going, how have you weathered the storm, how are you guys looking, how are we looking, more of just like not even as like an acquisition discussion, just more of just like like sharing notes in the industry, right? We're all going through very crazy time. And if you can imagine, swag is something that was cut very early on in the pandemic. There's no trade shows, right? There's no events. There's tons of things, no sporting events. Like many reasons for swag is to be given away at these specific locations. If there's locations and events are not happening, swag is cut. So how are you guys faring in the industry? And a couple of months, I didn't even meet Mark at this point. A couple of months, we were discussing, keeping track and pinging each other every couple of weeks and just staying in touch. And then it was like November or so where Andy on the Custom Ink team reached out to me and said, hey, I think it would be great if you met Mark at this point. So we met Mark. And then over the course of the year, we got to know Mark really, really well. And we like Mark, and he's such an honest guy, such a smart, innovative guy. And we felt like he saw the same vision that we saw of what we could do together.
What was your reaction when Andy said, hey, I think you should meet Mark now? Like, were you reading into that and thinking that this is more than maybe just a couple of industry guys getting together? Like, did you understand that Andy was trying to set up an M&A deal?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think of M&A, but I thought this could lead to it, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now. It made sense for the two leaders, like me and my company and Mark in Custom Ink, to be connected. I felt like there could be a potential because we got to know Andy very well over the course of the year, and we love Andy. So we were like, oh, these are people like we would actually want to work with ultimately. So this Custom Ink could ultimately be the acquirer for us.
But you also would have had to keep your cards pretty close to the vest because while he obviously was a perfect acquirer, he could have also been a pretty direct competitor.
Totally. And I've never been very nervous about competitors. We all have a different perspective. We all have a different focus. We all have a different feature set. We have different features. We have different, like if someone's going to build swag.com the same exact time that I did it in 2016, they would have gotten a completely different vision and platform and focus and branding strategy, because a lot of what we built was really in the weeds talking to our customers. You really have to spend that time learning from customers and being able to build the right solution for them and really thinking about it. Like even just high level, when we started in 2016, my vision was to go after the marketing team right within the company. That was my vision. I thought it made sense. The biggest budgets, marketing teams, etc. But after speaking to literally 100 plus marketing managers, I realized that ultimately marketing managers could be the right fit, but today they're not the right fit. And why did I say that? I left those meetings thinking, well, everyone's going after the marketing teams. Yes, they have the biggest budget. Yes, they buy swag to give away to the best customers, but everybody's coming to them. How is a no-name company like swag.com, who has no platform, that has a coming soon page, ever going to break through the ice? It wasn't possible. But we started speaking to office managers in the company. And office managers are not the sexiest. You don't think of like office managers like that's the target. They don't have the biggest budget. They're only buying for internal uses. But frankly, that was the Trojan horse. That was the way we got into the company. If no one's going after the office manager, but they're buying 100 t-shirts, not the thousands of t-shirts that the marketing team's buying, but all those 100 t-shirts say swag.com in the inner label, they're going to be introducing us to the marketing team, the HR team, the sales team, the London office, the New York office. They're going to be getting us in the door. So that one key aha moment of let's not focus on this customer, let's focus on this customer, even within the organization, to me, changed the entire trajectory of our business. Like we figured exactly the right thing to build for that office manager, got enough people to know about this. And then marketing teams at Facebook said, oh, the office manager bought it for Facebook. Social proof that Facebook's already using us. We're already in the system. How about we use you guys also for our external stuff? So I've never been super nervous about competition because you really have to have key insights. And that only comes from really talking to customers and really taking it from that perspective. Frankly,
Jeremy, as your business grew, how did that impact your ability to keep your ear to the ground? I mean, in the early days, you got nothing. So you got time on your hands. I'll go interview 100 marketing managers. Yeah. But as you're running a $30, $40 million business, like, are you still able to keep in touch with customers in the same way?
Yeah. So the first couple of years, 2016, 2017, 2018, we had like 3 or 4 customer service reps, meaning we have this live chat feature on the site. People request things in. Out of those 4, I was one of the 4. So I'm the CEO, but I'm also doing live chat and I'm learning from customers. And I told the other 3, I said, any new ideas and features that customers are asking for that we don't have, please stack rank it. Write it up in the Google spreadsheet and then mark it off how many customers ask for the same thing. And if enough customers ask for a certain feature, we're going to prioritize it. I'm also in charge of the technology. Like I'm head of product. So we don't have a user experience person at Swag. I design all the features, the user experience with one designer, and I work with the tech team to actually build it out. As we've grown bigger, now we have 20 plus customer service reps. They know it's really ingrained within the company that when you hear features that we don't have or things that are broken or maybe not working, please, you have to write it down because 80% of the stuff we build is directly coming from customer success. So our sales team, our customer success team knows that they need to get me that information. That's like very, very important because that's the only way we're going to grow. Now, 20% of things we build are just random ideas that we're like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. So against the wall. And some of them work, some of them don't work. But it's more innovative. It's like futuristic things that we want. But really, even from the very beginning, 80% came from people telling us we need this exact solution. We just launched a feature recently called Company Art Folder. We need the solution where I'm going to upload a logo. I need to see logos uploaded by everyone else in my company so I can easily get to the high-res logo without having to ping the designer and make sure it's the right file, make sure it's approved. Like there's things that just come up in conversation with customers that my team is writing down and they ping it to me and I have a huge running tally of features that people want. And then I organize it based on how many people are coming to me and asking for those same things.
You strike me, and this is intended as the highest compliment I can offer, Jeremy, as the consummate entrepreneur. Like you strike me as not the Wall Street, I went to the proper school and I got the job in investment banking. Like you went to film school and you cut your teeth and skinned your knees and had successes and had failures. You strike me as like the consummate entrepreneur.
Thank you.
And again, I don't place that praise lightly. I think it truly is the highest compliment one could pay another business person. And at the same time, it strikes me as that DNA is so misplaced in a corporate environment. How has it been for you as the consummate entrepreneur to be in the bowels of a giant corporation running a division of somebody else's company?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and something that honestly, when we got acquired, talking to other smart entrepreneurs, I heard the same thing. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to sell this? It's like, what are you going to do? Like, are you just checked out? Are you done? And I said exact opposite. I think we're going to build something even bigger, much, much bigger. We have a lot of ideas that I can't necessarily get into in terms of futuristic things that we're building that, Swag.com combined with Custom Ink is going to be, I think, changing the whole course of the industry. But you're right. It is very different. It's something that I'm getting used to. My way of getting used to and doing it is I'm just brutally honest. I would say that in a nice way. But if somebody is adding extra meetings to my schedule or giving their opinion, frankly, everyone's opinion matters, but not when you're building a startup. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is my opinion, and I think when you're starting a company, you have to have a sole vision, a sole focus. And the people that you should listen to are people who are directly involved in the vision or working on the company and customers. Like sometimes having too many voices, too many cooks in the kitchen make it impossible for anything to run because everyone's trying to, wants to give their input and wants to say, and then nothing ever gets done. I know it might not be the PC thing to say, and everyone says everyone should voice your opinion, but to me, that's not practical when you're trying to invent the future and build something out of nothing. That makes sense more when you have a bigger corporation and everyone needs to say and push things. But if you're inventing something that doesn't exist today, you need to come with a very direct vision and focus. And so that's it. Like when I'm in meetings, I say, do I have to be here? No, if I'm not here, then I'm not going to be on this call. And you got to be a little bit more blunt about it. And it's been working great for the last year and a half. I've been there and I'm able to really act like a startup founder, even within this big organization, which I know is not the norm.
Yeah. So I know we can't get specifically into the deal terms, but from what I understand, companies in this space are trading at somewhere in the 1 to 4 times revenue, technology, led businesses. Mark offered you shares in Custom Ink. I'd be curious to know, when you're accepting shares as a founder, you have to be comfortable with the valuation that is being placed on your company. But if the currency is the shares of the acquiring company, you also have to be comfortable in the valuation they're placing on their business. So how did they value Custom Ink, and how did you get comfortable with that valuation?
Yeah, these are things I can't really get into fully. It's a hard thing to talk about their valuation, how they did it. But suffice it to say, and this is, I think, the only reason why it really worked, is we were talking to them for 2 years. I mean, from the moment they reached out to us early 2020 to the time we got acquired in November, we got to know a lot about their business. We got to see their entire P&L. We got to feel very comfortable with how they're valuing themselves, and they got comfortable with how we're valuing us, and we came to an agreement that made sense. That's it. I think there's no right way to do it. It's, obviously the simplest deal would have been cash, but that's not the deal that we wanted. We didn't want to just get cashed out. The reason why we did the deal is because it was cash and also upside in equity. Because the ultimate goal is, whatever they value themselves today, we think that they're worth a lot more if now they have swag.com, if they have our technology and our brand, our focus, and we can synergize things. And what can we build together? Not only us helping out them, but them helping out us, and also theoretically developing completely new things that don't even exist today with their buying power and our technology if you combine resources. So there's a lot of ideas and a lot of things that made it be like, we don't just want cash. We don't just want to get checked out. We don't just want a big payday. I want enough that I could de-risk certain aspects of my life, but mainly it was for the upside for me.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. Have you got any sense, I know I'm asking you to sort of hypothesize, but have you got any sense of how much less you would have gotten for the company on a percentage basis if you just insisted on all cash?
I don't know. I probably think it would have been around the same, if I'm being honest. I don't, and frankly, I don't think it's one of those things. Like, I don't know if they would even done the deal. Like, we both saw the value of coming together. So if we just did cash and we were checked out, that misses a big opportunity for both of us. And I think it was a big part of theirs. They said, we want you guys to be involved. We want your vision. And there's a lot of things I can't necessarily discuss here because there's the things that we're building, but there's a much bigger vision of why we're coming together beyond just Custom Ink growing and doing amazing and swag.com growing and doing amazing. There's other things, and what can you build together, even completely new things that innovate and differentiate us from everybody else that's out there. So I think for both of us, it was the reaction that the deal was partially equity based.
Yeah. What was the reaction of your investors?
It's a good question. Some were ecstatic, over the moon, couldn't believe it, unbelievable. So we had some investors come in at the 3 million valuation. We had some investors came in a little bit earlier. Some investors came in at the 7 million. So to them, it was like beyond belief, right? It's most startups don't succeed. So if you're having a big success, that's great. And obviously there was some investors who maybe came in a little bit later rounds, who typically have more money in the bank, and to really change their lifestyle and needed to have, billion-dollar outcomes. And they were probably like, you're selling too soon. So I think in both ways, there was people super excited and some people were like moderately excited, but everybody overall was like, this was a fair deal for the revenue we're doing, the life cycle of the business, and where we are.
Well said. Are you up for a quick lightning round before I let you go?
Let's do it.
All right. Just a quick answer to a couple of questions. What was the slimiest trick an acquirer or investor tried to play on you?
Okay. We had a lot of investors reach out around the same 1.5 year period. So, we had one company, obviously I'm not going to say the names, but we had a company whose CEO reached out to me to acquire us. And when I politely said, I don't think it's the right fit, because I didn't want to get into that. We're already talking to another company who's none of their business, but I don't think it's the right fit, and it is what it is. They reached out directly to our head of our board to try to force a deal, or try to force us to at least bring it up to the board member to try to ruin something. So I thought that was a little bit slimy. I thought it felt a little bit weird. Obviously, if someone's reaching out to the founder and CEO, and I'm saying no, why do they think they could go around? But it is what it is. I do business a certain way and some people don't, right? So it is what it is.
Yeah. Never heard of an end run to the board member. That's interesting. Biggest mistake you made in the process of exiting your company? I realize you haven't formally and fully exited, but you've exited a tranche of your equity. What would you like to have a do-over on?
I think having our numbers and everything really in a tight shape so that we have all of our documents ready to go. We did it piecemeal. I think early on we sent a little bit, they asked for something and then we gave it to them. And then they asked for something more, we gave it to them. And I think it would have been super helpful if we had every single thing that you could imagine, maybe even hire a company, because we were very new to this, hire a company that could say, these are all the things that an acquirer will be asking for. You should put it together today versus waiting for them to ask for it. Because every time they asked for something, we had to put it together, and it delayed the deal. It delayed the conversations. Everything kept getting punted because we just didn't have the everything organized in the right way. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that I would have done differently. I think it would have set up, and made it something a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, that is phenomenal advice. My listeners should listen to that. Again, it's called pre-diligence, but there are consulting firms, accounting firms that you can hire to do that. And it's an incredible piece of advice. So thank you for sharing it. What was the lowest emotional point you reached during the process of negotiating? You and Mark spoke for, in your own admission, a year and a half or 2 years over, from the first contact to closing this deal. Was there sort of a low point that you reached during the process?
No, I think just in general, when you're going through diligence and you're selling a company or thinking about selling a company, like we didn't have to sell. And that's what I think gave me peace of mind. Like it wasn't like a thing like the business wasn't doing well. And on the flip side, the business was doing great. And we had a lot of acquisition offers, and we frankly could have decided we don't want it. We want to raise more money. We had a lot of our investors wanting to double down. So I was never in a nervousness of like, we had to take this deal or we're going to run out of money, or I think that we were in a really strong power position. I think just the main challenge is running a business while doing diligence, while having the emotional of like, I may be selling my company. You can't really discuss it with your employees. Then, you don't want to really make people nervous about the changes that could or could not happen before it's, too preliminary. And frankly, I had to still grow. Like if our sales dropped off the face of the cliff, there wouldn't be those opportunities. There wouldn't be those investors. There wouldn't be those acquirers. So I had to do like double time work, everything to keep the company growing at the rate that we were growing, 100% year over year, which is very nice. It's really not easy. And also deal with diligence, and also deal with negotiating the price, and also figuring out, how it's going to be structured post acquisition if we go through it. So there's a lot of moving parts to all of it.
What was the high point you reached emotionally during the process?
I'm not a person who necessarily has like super highs and super lows. So I wouldn't say like even when we got acquired, it was like a celebratory. I mean, that's not my personality. Like to me, it was, okay, this is the right thing. I could alleviate a lot of my financial stress right now. But it's really the opportunity ahead of us. And I just wanted to keep myself focused and frankly, keep myself super motivated, because I can imagine you sell, even if you're not selling the full amount, you can sell a portion in cash. It's like more money you could ever imagine. And then you could like take your foot off the gas. And that's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for to change the whole industry and to be a disruptor and to innovate. And the only way that could happen is if I have the same mentality as I had when I was living out of a one bedroom apartment, walkable apartment in New York City. I had to have the same mentality. So I just keep that same focus, and we'll see how it goes the next couple of years.
Even though you have that mentality, I'm praying that you bought some sort of trophy to commemorate this win. What did you buy to sort of celebrate the first sort of stage of your success?
Can I tell you, to be honest with you, I bought I live on the beach in Florida now, so I bought a bicycle. It's like a riding bicycle, just that pretty much. And I bought my wife a diamond ring. That's really it. We're not like big spenders, but just something.
Sorry, what kind of bike did you buy?
It's like one of those, like I forgot the name of like a 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙀, or one of those, like just like a regular, like a $800 bicycle, like a workout bicycle for the beach.
All right. So
nothing too crazy.
So you grow your company from $350K to $40 million in revenue, and you buy yourself a bike. Okay, just note to self: don't hang out with Jeremy. He's cheap.
Restaurants, food, we're going out, but I don't know. I'm not a big buyer. I'm not a big consumer, if you will.
Oh, Jeremy, I'm just joshing with you. I'm so grateful for you sharing your story. It's obviously an incredible story. Everybody should check out swag.com. It's an amazing business and a huge trajectory forward. Jeremy, is there anywhere else you want to point people to other than swag.com to get to know you or the company?
No, obviously feel free to reach out to swag.com if you're a business owner and you want to buy swag. Obviously, we would love to help you with that. Please reach out. And me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Parker, and please reach out. I'm always happy to talk to fellow entrepreneurs, and I get a lot out of it, in terms of like learning what other people are doing and just talking about things. And, we're all in this, frankly, together. It's not an easy job to be an entrepreneur. You're literally inventing the future. So I'm always going to be team entrepreneur for sure.
Awesome, Jeremy. We'll put Jeremy's profile in the show notes at builttosell.com. Thank you for doing this, Jeremy.
Of course. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.